Hello, mighty companions. Okay. All right. Hello, mighty companions. I want to welcome you to A Course in Miracles on Facebook Live as well as in person here. Would you like to know how the Course in Miracles teaches you would correct your errors? And would you could correct mistakes? Like, what's the best approach to take to correct errors? Would that be a worthwhile thing to recognize? Would that be a worthwhile thing to recognize? Okay, how to correct errors. I know you don't make any, but I'm glad that you're here to support those of us who still do sometimes make errors. I really appreciate that. That's very high of you. So I'm going to start out with one of the workbook lessons set to music. It's called I'm Not a Victim of the World I See. Or you could say, I'm not a victim of the world I see. Okay, here we go. So that we can relax and realize it's not about being serious. Let's not get our serious spirituality face on. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim, no, of the world I see. Say what? I'm not a victim of my mom. I'm not a victim of my pa. I'm not a victim of events and circumstance at all. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Cause what's happening now is what I've done to me. I'm not a victim of the future, not a victim of the past, a victim of anything that really doesn't last. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Cause what's happening now is what I done to me. That includes the good stuff. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim, no, of the world I see. No, no, no. Mighty companions, we're going to talk about the correction of error. How the Course in Miracles says that you really correct error. And so if you want to make sure that you take the correct approach to your mistakes and see it differently, that's what we're going to talk about today from A Course in Miracles, the correction of error. Guess what? I'm not a victim of the North, I'm not a victim of the South. Not a victim of anything but what comes out my mouth. I'm not a victim, oh yeah, of the world I see. Cause what's happening now is what I've done to me, including the good stuff. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Say what? I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim, no, of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Let's go. That was Brother John Christmas at johnChristmas.com. You can get a whole lot of wonderful music that are lessons based on the Course in Miracles, absolutely free. You can download it absolutely free. And sometimes music is a really easy way to remember truth, to set it to a rhythm. That's why I use music in my classes, because music opens up your intuitive side, your right brain, because we just much too left brain. We think we're going to analyze and figure out the creator in the universe, and we can't even figure out who we're going to get our clothes out the cleaners. But I'm supposed to understand how the infinite intelligence of the universe operates completely. It's really kind of funny, right? I'm going to understand God. Now, I don't understand my mama, But I'm going to understand the infinite creator of the universe. And besides that, Earl's going to explain that to me in an hour. And it'll be handled. So that you won't feel any kind of inferiority complex, I'll pretend like I don't know all the answers. So we'll seem like we all equal here. We're going to be on page 166 in the Course in Miracles text. Page 166 in the Course in Miracles text, and the section is called The Correction of Error. The Correction of Error. I'm going to use Course in Miracles substitutions for a lot of these terms. I'm going to give you the definitions of these terms that the Course in Miracles uses and not necessarily what we use. The Course in Miracles has its own guidelines for how you are to hear it and how you are to study it, and it gives us those guidelines in the workbook, at the beginning of the workbook, but I'm going to share it to you. This is not something Earl made up, but this is what the Course in Miracles says, the attitude you should have in order to get the most out of the Course in Miracles and to have an open mind to hear what it's saying. And people who don't do this have a hard time with the Course in Miracles. So I'm telling you now, this is the attitude to take. You don't have to believe the ideas that I'm about to give you from A Course in Miracles. You do not have to believe the ideas. You do not have to believe the ideas when you hear these ideas. You also don't have to accept the ideas. You need not accept the ideas. Got it? You don't have to believe what I'm saying. You don't have to accept what the Course is saying. And you don't even have to welcome it. So the Course is saying it doesn't even matter whether you even welcoming the ideas. Actually, some of the ideas you're probably going to resist. So I want you to kind of keep track of the ideas that I share from the Course in Miracles that you find yourself wanting to throw a rotten egg at me for even saying it. Okay? I want you to pay attention to what it is brings up your resistance, because usually the thing you resist the most is the thing that most applies to you. That's the irony of it, is that most of the time the things that you resist are the things you need to hear. So pay particular attention when somebody says something to you and then you feel a lot of resistance come up. That means they're saying something to you that you probably don't believe or agree with, right? But the way you already think is what's producing the experience that you're going through. So if the way you already think is presenting that relationship that's making you want to jump off the top of a building, then you're probably going to hear the truth is probably going to be something that you don't already believe, and you'd already have perfect, peaceful relationships. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. That it's the way you already believe that's producing the life that you're living right now. The life that you are living right now and all the relationships and everything about your life is coming from your decision, your choices, your thoughts. So the Course is going to say, in dealing with relationships, I'm going to tell you the easiest way to deal with relationships. It's called the correction of error, which is the same as the correction of the ego. The ego is everybody that you know. Rather than just saying human beings, the Course in Miracles soul would make us not feel too weird, calls us egos. The part of us, a person that thinks they're separate from one, a person that believes we're really separate and disconnected from one another. The part of the mind that believes in fear and separation, and that you could be a victim. Does everybody have a part of their mind that sometimes feels like somebody else is responsible for what you're feeling? That's called the ego. The part of us that thinks that we're separate from each other is called the ego. The Course calls it the fearful mind. Are you familiar with fearful minds? Would you agree that there are some? Do you have any part of your mind that has fear from time to time? Okay. But you all are bragging. The part of my mind that has fear all the time. Because my eyes are open and I can see where I'm at. Suppose you were all in a pile, you and a bunch of your friends was in a pile of manure. And you were asleep. Okay? And you gotten used to the smell. And you're sleeping. In the manure. And one of y'all wake up. Boop. And you go, oh my God, I'm in a pile of manure. Right? Yet, so first you recognize you're in the manure, then you said, then what's the next step? How do I get out? Right? But your friends who are still asleep in the manure, they don't realize they're in it. But now they're smelling it and it's not comfortable, But they don't realize that you're waking up. And so you see where you are. And then you want to get out. But that's the difference between a person who's having a spiritual awakening and a regular person. A regular person is experiencing all kinds of fears and conflicts, but they are asleep to what's really causing it. And so they just keep on perpetuating the same thing that they're going through. They believe for instance, if I have a relationship that's not working, the problem is the person I'm in the relationship with. So the answer is to get rid of that person and then get a brand new person that you're going to project all of your conditions and programming and dysfunctions. Now you're going to project it on this person. And because somehow or another, if I can just find the right person, that would be, if I can just find the right job, then I'm going to be happy. We don't realize it's what's creating the dissatisfaction in your relationship is the way you're thinking and seeing relationships. And just because you spend a lot of time between two relationships because you broke up in one and you wait a long time, that doesn't mean anything if in the meantime you're not doing some self-help work and some self-improvement work to find out why the other one didn't work. But you need to change. I keep asking, does it make sense? Okay, some people think just because there's been 2 years or 3 years between when they had a relationship, they're ready for the other one, the new one, but they haven't done anything else. As a matter of fact, the fact that you waited 2 years has made you forget how you caused the last one. Because you've had 2 years pass by, so you forgot what, So I'm just telling you that there's a correction of the ego, the correction of error. And I work out of the Course in Miracles book because my true motivation is to get you to do the study for yourself and to learn how to apply the Course in Miracles for yourself in your life. Even though I've read this book cover to cover several hundred times and my life has improved every time I've done it, I always work out of the book because the book will tell you more things than I could ever tell you. I just want to elaborate on it. So trust my 43 years. Okay, so let's start with the first sentence. Do you know the alertness of the ego to the errors of other egos is not the kind of vigilance the Holy Spirit would have you maintain? What is the Holy Spirit? Your loving right mind. What is the ego? The part of my mind that's wrong. The Course in Miracles dares use words like right and wrong. I know that's not a very popular concept in New Age circles, but everything ain't right. And wrong isn't a bad thing. So the alertness of the wrong mind, so let's just use the substitution. Do you know the alertness of a wrong-minded person to the errors of another wrong-minded person is not the kind of vigilance that right-mindedness would have you maintain? And what does that mean? You can always do that with the Course. What does that mean? Then go to the next sentence. Egos, regular people who don't know the truth, people who don't know the truth, they are critical in terms of the kind of sense they stand for. I'm judging you according to my values. I'm critical of you according to the kind of sense I believe in. So when I judge you, I'm judging you compared to my thought system. Are you not doing that? When you judge people, you're judging them according to what you think makes sense. And the Course in Miracles says, whatever your kind of sense is, you understand this kind of sense. Because it's sensible to you. You understand your sense because it's sensible to you, but to somebody else, they might be saying, that's the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. But it makes total sense to you. And so do you know the Course says, to the right mind, the wrong mind makes no sense at all. To somebody who's loving and kind and wants to connect and wants to join and wants to take responsibility and wants to be free, people who are limited, judgmental, see themselves as victims of everything, have a lot of guilt, fear, and attack, they don't make sense to that person at all. I want to be loving and kind, so I'm going to say it doesn't make any sense the way you're treating somebody else when you're trying to hurt them or attack them. So to a right mind, the wrong mind doesn't make any sense at all. So the Holy Spirit, which is the voice for God, the voice for truth in us, our right mind, to what's going on in the world that's being created by fearful parts of the mind, the Course is saying it doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any sense at all the way that it seems like some of us treat each other. It really doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm tired of it. Are you tired of it? I am. I'm tired of us waiting for everybody else to be different in order for things to change. I'm tired of the Republicans looking for the Democrats to change, the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents. I'm tired of the division and the separation, and whoever's in my camp, they right. Anybody who's not in my camp, they're wrong. The separation and division that's happening, it's wrong-mindedness. I don't want to dislike you just because of the color of your skin. You walked in the room and just because of the color of your skin, I don't like you. I'm sure you'll give me other reasons if I get to know you. It's called relationship. But you also find a lot of reasons to appreciate that person. Also, I'm so glad I now know the purpose of a relationship is for us to nurture and help each other remember how lovable, loving, and wonderful we are and how much we deserve to be happy. I'm so glad I know why I'm in my relationships with people is to reinforce the love in them and the love in their life. I used to think that they were basically there just to serve me. I called it my treasure map, my creative visualization, my visualizing how I want you to be. Think about that for a minute. I'm visualizing how I want you to be in order to make me happy. In other words, I want you all to serve me. I want you to do what I want you to do. I'm not really hard to understand. Just do what I want you to do. Just do what I want you to do the way I want you to do it. And by the way, I'm not a good communicator, so I'm not even telling you that. I say I don't believe in psychic powers, but I'm expecting you to read my mind. You didn't get that without me saying it? So to a right-minded, loving-minded person, a fearful, angry person doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm about the practical application of the course. To me, there's no point in coming to this class to hear abstract concepts that sound entertaining for a little while and then walk out of the door and do everything the way you've already been doing it. So let's see what the answer is. He says, to the ego, to the wrong mind, it is kind and right and good to point out errors and correct them. I'll say this again. To the wrong man, I'm being kind to you, and do you know I'm being right and good to you? Because I'm going to point out your errors. And not only, but I'm not just going to point your errors out. I'm going to correct them. I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing. And the Course says, this makes perfect sense to the ego. This makes perfect sense to the wrong-minded person. Look, I'm a good person. That's what good people do. They point out what you're doing wrong and they help you fix it. I have to remember with women all the time while I'm pretending I'm a man. That, because as you do, I've done the Course in Miracles 43 years. My sense of identification is not a man. I see myself as a being. You study the Course long enough, you realize you are a being that's expressing through a body that seems to be male or female or a host of other things nowadays. Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying? You are more than a man or a woman or whatever the gender identification that you have. You are more than that. So the Course is saying to a person who doesn't know the truth, it makes perfect sense to point out what you are doing and then try to correct you. Then it says, the truth is, errors are of the ego. Who's making the errors is the person that's wrong-minded. Just follow it. Then it goes, well, errors are of the ego. So you're making a mistake because you're in your wrong mind. So how do you correct your errors? You relinquish the part of your mind that's wrong. You let go of the part of your mind that's wrong-minded. Just use wrong-minded for ego to be easy to hear this, right? Ego sounds kind of abstract. Wrong-minded, So I'm wrong-minded, but I think the way to correct errors is for me to point out where you're wrong and correct you. So I'm using my mind to figure out how I can get everybody else's minds to be different. Have you ever used your mind to figure out how to change someone? Have you ever used your mind to figure out how to change a circumstance? That's you using your mind to try to figure out how to change everything but whose mind? Yours. That's the purpose of my mind, is to come up with what's wrong with y'all and how to fix it. And I'm going to tell you whether you ask me or not. You with me? Okay, because you can get 3 sentences of the Course in Miracles and remember it and change your whole life. It's not like we have to finish the whole section today. You would be doing good if you just remembered every time you try to point out somebody else's errors and correct them without them asking you that you're in your wrong mind. So you're trying to correct their wrong mind from yours. I'm wrong-minded, but I'm going to correct your wrong mind. Okay. Then the Course in Miracles says, when you correct a brother, and we can say, when you correct another, what are you doing? He says, well, when you correct another, what you're really doing is you're telling that person that they're wrong. Every time you correct me, you're telling me I'm wrong. Did you know that? Every time you correct somebody, you're telling them, you're wrong. That's why I'm correcting you, because you're wrong. So you think you're trying to be helpful. The person emotionally is responding with, you telling me I'm wrong. That's what they're feeling. You telling me I'm wrong. And nothing upsets people more than to be told they're wrong, even if they're wrong. So the minute you go, I'm going to pound the mistake that you're making in terms of how you're relating to that person over there. And I think it's kind of right and good to point out to you what you're doing wrong. Well, actually, I'm the one that's wrong because I'm the one that's correcting you, and you didn't ask me to. You didn't ask me anything. You didn't say, I want you to give me another way to look at it. You didn't say, I want you to, I didn't say, I want you to give me another way of looking at it. I didn't tell you I was unsatisfied with the way I was sharing. So really, you were wrong. That's why sometimes people like to be in relationships and friendships, because when you're by yourself a lot, there's nobody to blame for anything. I say, I live alone. So I can't say you all are the reason I had a bad time 2 nights ago. You know what I'm saying? I can't blame my partner. You know, I don't even have a cat. At least the cat, you know. So the Course in Miracles says, when you correct a person, you're telling that person that they're wrong. Guess what? Now check this out. He says, the person may be making no sense. What? The person may be making no sense at the time, but it's certain that if the person is speaking from their ego, what does that mean? If a person is speaking from their wrong-mindedness, if they're speaking from their fear, if they're speaking from their anger, if they're speaking from their guilt, then the Course in Miracles says they won't be making sense. So when somebody's speaking from their ego, they're not making sense. But what is your task? It says, well, your task is still to tell that person that they're right. What? Your job is still to tell that person that they're right. But don't forget to keep reading, because right now you're probably going, what the hell? What do you mean, tell that person they're right? See, that's what happens with the Course. When you stop before going to the next sentence, then stop and try to analyze it and figure it out, you're making a mistake, because the mind that created the Course in Miracles knows that you won't understand what you're reading. So it'll share exactly what it's talking about. Did you check the next sentence out? What does the next sentence say? It says, you do not tell that person this verbally. I don't tell you, you're talking crazy, I'm not going to tell you right. Did you get that? Did y'all hear that? Okay. What does it say you need to do? It said, well, especially you don't tell them verbally that they're right when they're speaking foolishly. They're saying something stupid, you don't say, you're right. Right? What do? Well, it says, well, that person needs correction at another level because their error is at another level. What does that mean, that person needs correction at another level because their error is at another level? Well, the error is always at a mental level. Every error that we make is at a mental level. And then what happens at the physical level is a result of what we're doing at the mental level. So really, if you're going to correct anything, you correct it at the mental level. You correct it at the level of the thinking, the thought. And is it popular in spiritual circles to say we are all one? Is it popular to say we are one mind? Okay, let me ask you a question. If we are one mind, would that mean that whatever went into my mind also went into your mind? If our minds are joined, right? So the correction needs to happen at another level. It needs, because the error is at the thinking level, the solution is at the thinking level. What is it that the Course in Miracles does? It gives you what it calls right thinking. It gives you another way of looking at things. Do I need one? Are you unhappy? Well, not in every area. Well, great. then you need to apply this in areas that you're not. And your relationship should be a relationship that helps you do that. You should be in relationships and friendships with people who help you remember that you're a powerful, loving being. Not someone that helps you forget it because they're judging you, condemning you, and criticizing you. Whew. Now, there are 3 levels of relationship. One level of relationship is a casual encounter, maybe meeting somebody in the elevator, and they push the button for you. The Course says in that instant you had a healing instant. That was a holy instant. Just for a second, you did something for each other. That's a miracle. That's why it's called A Course in Miracles. Okay. I got on the elevator the other day going to the movie. His family got on, this couple, and it's like some people who were dating. And the guy looked at me because I got some hard glasses, and he went, "Oh my God," he said, "Boy, I love those glasses. Those glasses are great." And then I said back, "Well, that's because I want to be reminded to look at the world through eyes of love." And everybody in the elevator went, "Oh!" And everybody just immediately woke up, and they was like, and they were so friendly and open to me. And then the lady, I guess the wife, she said, "You just made my day." And then they stood back to when I got out the elevator. It happened we were going to the same movie to see this spiritual movie called John Wick 4. And so I could spread light to everybody while they was taking each other out. Yeah. And then they opened the door when I got to the theater, and and my point is they looked like regular people on the elevator until I extended. And I said it was about love. And I came at them with a loving energy. And they did exactly what the Course in Miracles says people will do when you do it. Because most people are good people and most people are loving people. And they think you're the problem. I'm a nice person. You, I don't know. And that's what most people think. They're the good one. And they're afraid that they might meet somebody that's not so good. So I would venture to say, most people are good people. They're loving people. Don't let what you see in the news and on TV make you think that everybody's like that, because that's what's happening. But why am I so scared? I know most people are nice people, but what about that one person that might be the problem? So I saw a good example of what the Course says. I extended love, and love came back immediately. Immediately. Didn't nobody try to correct me either. They were like happy to hear that I wanted to look at the world through love, because I am not going to wait for everybody else to be kind and loving. I am not going to do that anymore. So the Course says, you don't tell the person they're right verbally if they're talking crazy. I'm giving you plain language version of the Course. That person needs correction at another level. What was the level that I said? The thinking, mental level. Then he goes, why? Because their error is at another level. They are still right because they're a child of God. What does that mean? It means you are a spiritual being. You are a child of love. You are who you really are is right. Your frightened part of you may not be, but your real self is right. But your ego is always wrong. The part of you that thinks you're separate from everybody, the part of you that believes in guilt and anger and fear and separation, the Course says that part of you that thinks you're a victim of everything you see. He says that part of you that thinks you're a regular human being, that part of you, he says, is not sometimes wrong. He says it's always wrong. Anybody that thinks they're just a body that's separate from everybody is wrong. And it's almost like a person believing, if you believe the world is flat, then would every decision that you make based on the idea that the world is flat be wrong? Right. If you making your whole if you had the premise that you were in California right now instead of Colorado, then every decision that you made based on the idea that you were in Colorado when you're really in California, would that decision be wrong? Yeah. So the Course in Miracles is saying that as long as you all think you're separate beings, separate from each other, as long as you believe in fear, anger, guilt, rejection, and blame, as long as you've forgotten that you're innocent, sinless, guiltless, you make mistakes are for correct, as long as you forget that you have unconditional love, that the universe is loving, that our Creator is loving, the Course says you make any premises from that, you're wrong. So when I'm talking to a person who believes that they are separate from me, then I know that I'm talking to a person who doesn't know the truth. And if I'm talking to a person who doesn't know the truth, I'm talking to a person who doesn't know what they do to me, they're doing to themselves, then I know that if I enter a relationship with that person at some point, they're going to be tempted to blame me and project what they're going through on me because they don't know the truth. They're wrong-minded. So the person's ego is always wrong. The part of you that doesn't believe that you're loved, or doesn't believe that you're valuable, or don't believe that you're connected to source, he says your human self based on separation is always wrong, no matter what it says or does. He said, no matter what you say or do, as long as you're coming from the premise that we're separate from each other, then you're wrong. Now, I don't want to, the Course in Miracles says you learn the untrue teachings of the world so that you'll be able to communicate with people on the level they understand. So because you're on a spiritual path doesn't mean that you don't become acquainted with the way the world looks at things and the world thinks of things. But here's the good part. You already know what that's like because you probably learned that before you got on your spiritual path. So you already know how the world thinks. You already know how separate people think. So what happens next? Well, he says if you point out the mistakes of the other person, now this is the part I didn't like. He said if you point out the errors of your brother's ego, you must be seeing through yours. Mm. So if I point out your mistakes, I'm seeing through my mistakes. If I'm seeing your errors, then I'm really seeing it through my errors. What he's saying is, I can only see an ego through my ego. I can only see a fearful mind through my fearful mind. Whatever I see in you, I can only see it through the part of me that's just like you. Let's put it another way. Whatever I see in anybody, I can only see it through the part of me that's also that way. If I call you selfish, I'm seeing it through the part of my mind that believes in selfishness and knows how to do selfishness, because if it wasn't already part of my mind, I couldn't point it out in yours. There'd have to be something in me that knows what being selfish means if I'm seeing it in you. So the Course in Miracles, and notice I said the Course in Miracles says, because this is not Earl Purdy giving you his wisdom. I'm a messenger. The Course in Miracles says a minister is a messenger. So when I see myself as a messenger of love, a messenger of truth, and I'm passing on the message to you all, I don't have to take it personal about how you respond or how you react. Well, if I was coming to you, this is Earl Purdy's class with the Earl Purdy method of happiness, okay, then I'm going to have to defend that constantly. But when you become a messenger of an intelligence and a love greater than yourself, then you're not personally responsible. So you can feel more okay about how everybody reacts to it. Because to me, it doesn't matter anymore whether a person really believes what I'm saying or agree with what I'm saying. Gravity doesn't come and go according to your moods. So the way you feel about something doesn't change anything that's real and true. Wow. Wow. And that also goes for love. If I love you, there's nothing you can say or do that's going to stop me from loving you. If it's real, nothing can affect it. If it's unreal, anything can. How many of you can't speak to a person that another time you're in a relationship and you all would vow an undying love and loyalty for the rest of your lives? Anybody ever had that? Where you don't even know where they're at. But at that time, y'all, and I love the line that a lot of us say, including me, I've said it when we don't. And we are still going to be friends, even if things don't work out. So funny. Then why you avoid me in the King Super line at the grocery store? I saw you in the store and I went down the other aisle. Looks like some forgiveness needs to happen. So the Course in Miracles says, if you put out the mistakes of another person's ego, you must be seeing through yours, because you're right, man. The Holy Spirit doesn't even see their ego, doesn't even see their mistakes. So when you're in a sane mind, a loving mind, you don't really see the mistakes. And when you're in an unloving mind, all you see is mistakes. And so he says, the Holy Spirit doesn't perceive their mistakes. This must be true, since there is no communication between the ego and the Holy Spirit. There is no communication between the fearful mind and the loving mind. There's no real joining. Have you ever tried to communicate with somebody who believed just the opposite of everything you believe? Have you ever tried to communicate with somebody and you in a real loving place and they're in a real fearful place? See, the Course is saying a divine being, a being that's awake, does not see your mistakes. They're not seeing your mistakes. They're not seeing what you're doing wrong all the time. Somebody who loves you, they're not focused on what you're doing wrong all the time. The Holy Spirit, the voice for God, the Court says, it doesn't even, that's good news, because that means the divine is not really focusing on even what you think of as your mistakes. There's something that's loving me regardless of what I think about myself. And sometimes I think I'm unworthy. Sometimes I can make myself feel ashamed. And he's saying, when somebody loves you, they're not focusing on that. They're not focusing on the error. So he says, the ego makes no sense. Anybody that thinks they're a body, anybody that thinks they're separate, anybody that thinks they're really guilty, anybody that thinks they're really alone, they think they have no power, that they're not free, that they're not unlimited spiritual beings. The Court says that's the ego, and the ego makes no sense. So when you're in your right mind, I love this, he says, your right mind, the Holy Spirit, doesn't attempt to understand anything that arises from you. See, it's so funny. If I'm in my right mind, I'm not going to even try to attempt to understand anything that you're saying out of your fear, anger, and guilt and misperception. I'm not going to try to understand anything that arises from your sense of separation from God. I don't know about you, but this sounds like a lot less work than what I've been doing. Have y'all noticed that? Right. First he says, the ego thinks it's kind of right and good to try to correct somebody. That's work. And you never change anybody. Then the next thing it says is that, well, spirit doesn't even attempt to try to understand anything that's coming out of your wrong-mindedness. And since the right mind doesn't understand anything a wrong mind is saying, then a right mind doesn't even judge it. How can I judge what you're saying when I don't understand it? I practice astrology and numerology. And if you're not familiar with astrology and numerology, I could say to you, honey, right now, my Uranus is squaring my Pluto. And since that won't does that make any sense to you? No. So how successfully can you judge it? You can't, can you? Because the minute you recognize you don't understand something, you can't judge whether it's good or bad, right or wrong. And that's what Spirit is telling us. That when you're in your right mind, you don't attempt to understand anything that's coming from the wrong mind. And since you don't understand it, you don't judge it. Why is it that you won't judge what a person who doesn't know the truth, what a person who doesn't know the truth is saying? Why would you not judge it? He says, well, you wouldn't judge it because nothing that a fearful, angry, separate mind says really means anything. Because nothing that a person who believes just what the world teaches us, nothing they say makes any sense. Anything that a person who doesn't believe in love and peace and joining says doesn't make any sense, because the only thing that's going to make any sense and make any real difference is love and peace and joining and harmony. And when we come up with any other solutions other than finding ways to love each other, support each other, care about each other, y'all can have 1 million meetings, it can be 1 million joinings of the Congress, there can be 1 million new bills passed. Nothing in the world is going to change until we start to appreciate and love each other more. And that starts with appreciating and loving yourself first. So stop being around. I tell people this all the time. Stop spending intimate time with people, if you can help it, who are not recognizing you and appreciating you. And if they are not, recognize that they are in their ego and that they are calling for love. They're calling for help. They don't know the truth. If they knew the truth, then they wouldn't be unhappy. They wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. So he's really truth. The Spirit is letting me off the hook. It's saying, okay, then it says in the next paragraph, now this is the other part. It says, when you react at all to errors, you're not listening to your guidance. You're not listening to the Holy Spirit. You're not listening to the truth. I said this again. What did I just say? I just said, when you react to people's errors and mistakes, I put it this way, when you react to what you perceive as people's errors and mistakes, he said, well, you are not listening to love. You're not listening to peace. You're not listening to God. It's saying, because if you're in your right mind, in most of the cases, you're just going to be disregarding what people who don't know the truth are saying all the time anyway. You're going to be disregarding what people say who are full of anger and fear and grievance. So you're listening to the people around you, and they're complaining, and they're criticizing, and they're judging, like in your everyday life when you go to work tomorrow or whatever. If you're in your right mind, then what is it that you're going to do? You're going to disregard everything that you're hearing all day long as much as possible. Now, remember, readiness is not mastery. So because I'm telling you to learn how to stop correcting people, that doesn't mean you have done anything with your pattern of doing that. Do you want to know how to keep from fooling yourself and hurting yourself a lot? Just because you're ready to be a certain way doesn't mean you've mastered being that way. Because you say you want to learn how to stop trying to fix and correct everybody around you, that doesn't mean you have trained yourself to stop trying to fix and correct everyone around you. Because it can be such a habit that you do it before you even think about it. Right? Think about how many times in your life you said to yourself you were ready to not feel guilty anymore about a certain thing, and then it happens, you do it, and you're still feeling guilty about it, just because you're ready. So how do you get rid of the guilt? You have to retrain your mind. How do you retrain your mind? The way you retrain your mind is through repetition, telling yourself something true and new, and then saying it to yourself over and over and over again until you accept it as true. If you don't repeat how you want to be, if you don't start saying and thinking the way you want to be, you won't manifest it in your perception. Thinking about telling you I appreciate you is not the same as me saying, guess what, Margaret, I really appreciate you. That's a world of difference. Now a thought, an action, and here's a great definition of an action. An action is a thought in physical motion, outwardly perceived. An action is something I'm thinking about doing that I've set into physical motion. So thinking about being kind, thinking about telling somebody how much you appreciate them, thinking about focusing in on the truth, what is the action that you're doing in order to back that up? So the Course says, when you react at all to errors or egos, you're not listening to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit has merely disregarded the ego, the actions, the wrong-mindedness. If you attend to that person's ego, you're not hearing the Holy Spirit. So if you're getting caught up in what everything that somebody's saying around you that's coming from fear and anger and misperception, then you're not listening to God. You're not listening to the truth. If you don't hear the Holy Spirit, if you don't hear the voice, your inner guidance, the voice of truth, he says, then you're listening to your own ego. You're listening to your own wrong-mindedness. So you're really making as little sense as the person whose mistakes you're looking at. So I think you're making some mistakes that I need to correct. And so if I try to correct you without you really asking me to do that, then I am not following God's guidance, because God's guidance is that it's not my job to point out and correct what needs to be changed in somebody else. And if I'm seeing what I think is wrong with you, I'm looking at it through the part of my mind that's the same way. So if anything, you should be feeling grateful to the people that you judge for getting you in touch with what you are like. They're actually showing you what you need to heal and correct in yourself. So you be glad when you're criticizing your friend and saying they're being too selfish about something. They're making you aware that you are selfish about something, or you wouldn't see them as being selfish about something. So they told you, well, you need to learn how to get rid of your own selfishness. So you need to do your own work on you. So the truth is, everybody in our lives should be inspiring us to heal us. Instead of inspiring me to try to change you and fix you, seeing something in you is telling me what it is I need to fix in my mind. So all day long, you all are seeing what's wrong with you. Or all day you seeing what's right with you. Wow. So if I go, the whole world needs to change, it's going to hell in the handbasket, there's too much negativity, there needs to be more love, that's what I see. Well, I'm seeing it through my own ego, so it just told me what I need to work on, which is why I teach A Course in Miracles and study the Course in Miracles and work on my spiritual path, because I'm awake enough to know that the world is a projection of my consciousness, and I'm going to see as much love in the world as I have corrected in my own perception. So if I want to have loving, kind people in my life, I've got to be a loving, kind person. So I do all these I do the Course in Miracles so that I can become more loving myself, because I know my physical world is going to give me what I give it. So I'm no longer trying to change, as much as I possibly can, I'm no longer trying to change anybody I know. What I'm really trying to do is change my perception of everybody I know. You can't change people, but you can change your perception of them. You can't change the world. Haven't you noticed? Would you agree the world has pretty much existed for thousands of years? Well, then why do you think you're going to be the one to do something that nobody's been able to do for thousands of years, which has changed the world? What makes you think that that's the solution? The solution isn't changing the world. The solution is changing our mind about ourselves and our mind about the world. Because a person that loves themselves, they're not going to allow their environment to be destroyed. Somebody that loves themselves, they're going to eat right. Somebody that loves themselves, they're going to try to be more kind and compassionate. Somebody that loves themselves, they're not going to enter into a relationship with somebody that never appreciates them. See, the answer is self-love. The answer is I care about myself and my family and my friends and people I don't even know, to not want to side with the idea of what can we do to change our minds, to change the world. Because changing the world is going to come from changing my mind about the world. Okay. So this is very practical, you all. This is what I'm sharing right now is very practical. Don't feel like I'm saying something abstract. Later on today, when you're ready to correct somebody, and you're tempted to correct somebody, remember you're listening to your ego. You're listening to the wrong voice. Realize you're only seeing them through your own ego. And that the Holy Spirit has disregarded it because the Holy Spirit is focusing on the truth in them, what's right about them. Love is focusing on who they really are and not the way you see them. So if you don't hear the Holy Spirit, if you don't hear the Holy Spirit, if you don't hear the loving right mind, you're listening to what? Your ego. So what happens when you're listening to your ego and thinking that the problem is somebody else and you need to correct them? He says, well, you're then making as little sense as the person whose errors you're looking at. Guess what? This can't be correction. You doing the same thing that you're seeing somebody else do. You trying to fix and correct somebody else. He says, that's a lack of correction for you. It's not just a lack of correction for the other person. It's also giving up correction in yourself. So every time I try to correct you, I'm taking myself further into misperception. I'm taking myself further into the wrong man. But this is good news. I'm being told to mind my own business. It's a super metaphysical way of the universe saying, mind your own friggin' business. If nobody has asked you to correct them, shut up. And if you do see something you think that need to be corrected in them, know it's what needs to be corrected in you. Have you ever wondered why higher beings don't talk to you? That there's no big voice that just, you get out the shower and you go, wow! I don't know why I said that. Don't y'all correct me. Y'all bent down, y'all see me through your own shower. The Course in Miracles says, at the level of spiritual truth and that we are unlimited spiritual beings, earth is a joke we forgot to laugh at. It's so outrageous to think a child of the Creator could be in a situation where they're afraid and suffering and not having what they want, that it's a joke we forgot to laugh at. That at some level we've forgotten who we really are. That we're divine beings and that we're not victims. So, there's a point I want to get to here. So the Course says, when a person behaves insanely, you can only heal them by perceiving the sanity in them. So if the person is behaving insanely that you're dealing with, you have to perceive that there's some sanity in them somewhere. But if you perceive that person's mistakes, and if you accept that person's mistakes, what are you doing? He said, well, you're accepting your mistakes, because their mistake is your mistake if you're seeing it. So if you want to give now this is the line, I'm going to say this 10 times. If you want to give your mistakes over to the Holy Spirit, if you want to give your problems over to God, if you want to give your mistakes, if you want to give the situation or circumstance that you're going through, whether it be a health situation or financial situation or a spiritual situation or relationship situation, if you want to, because don't we try to give our stuff over to a higher power? If those of you who are on a spiritual path and you're trying to surrender and release what you're going through to a higher power, is that what you're doing? Well, the Course in Miracles says, Well, if you want to give yours over to the Holy Spirit, you got to do that with theirs. Why is it that I give my problem over to God, but you have a problem, and I feel like it's my responsibility to fix it? Wait a minute. I give my stuff over to God, but then I feel like I got to handle and correct yours? That's what the book just got through saying. If you want to give yours over to Spirit, you got to do it with theirs. So I don't know if you realize it or not, but we've been let off the hook again. It just told me rather than me try to fix everything, if I'm going to give my stuff to God, guess what? I'm going to give yours to God. Like when people are going through something and they ask me to pray for them or pray for somebody they know, I only have one prayer. You know what it is? I ask that God's will be done in this situation. I don't ever say, I'm asking for that person to be healed, or asking for that person I'm praying for you to get that job, or I'm practicing for you to get that money, or I'm going to pray for you to get that money or that job. You know why I don't pray that way anymore? Because I don't know your best interest. I don't know that it's best for you that you get that job. I don't know even if it's best for you that you get physically healed. I don't know if it's best for you that you don't die. I don't know what's best for you. I don't know what's best for you. I personally don't believe that anybody dies wants to come back. That's why people think nobody has. If there is an afterlife, notice nobody, your grandmama haven't come back as far as you know. Why? Because we all know where we came from is a gazillion times more loving than where we are now. We all know it. We all know it. Some of us pretend we don't know it so we can take our illusion more seriously. And then there are those of us who know we came from somewhere greater than this, and that this is an earth school that we're learning how to love in. Some souls are baby souls. They haven't incarnated many times, so they're totally selfish and only think about themselves like babies do. There are some souls that have come in here so many times that they're done. And they're going, you know what? Whatever the lesson is I need to learn, then I'm willing to learn it if it means that I will be in an environment and in a place, and I don't have to die to go there in order for me to have peace. And then you have spiritual curriculums that teach you how to do it. The Course in Miracles is the spiritual curriculum for some people, and I'm here for those people, but it's not the only path. I'm so glad it's not the only path, because one path is too slow. Right? If I got to get everybody to go down Colfax, it's going to be a traffic jam, and people are going to rebel. Right? So it would be better to get to the church through as many different streets as you can possibly get to, from all the directions you can get to it in. And I support you coming down 16th Avenue if that's the easiest way for you. We all going to end up in the same place, love, which is the church, right? That's what the Course is telling us. Anytime somebody tells you their way is the way, and it's not a way that resonates with you, you know instantly that that's not your path. And you support them in theirs. It sounds like another one of those easy solutions. I want you to do exactly what you want to do with you, exactly how you want to do it, all the time. I try spiritual. I want all of you to do everything the way you want to do it, however you want to do it, all the time. I want you to be exactly the way you are, all the time. That's not work unless I want you to serve me. See, if I want you to serve me now, then I got a script for every one of you for what you should do in order to make me happy. And I'm going to spend all my time, my mind, instead of figuring out how to change me, I'm going to use my mind trying to come up with how I can change you so that I can be happy. Because that should be your goal too. It's my happiness. And relationships always seek, and I'm not talking about just romantic relationships. In relationships with people, always shoot for what I call, if it's one person, you shoot for a 200% solution. What is a 200% solution? A 200% solution is where both people feel comfortable with the solution. Both of you feel peace about whatever it is you have decided. If it's 3 people, you want a 300% solution. If it's 5 people, you want a 5. Your goal is, what solution can we come up with that everybody feels is fair and feels right for them? The more spiritual I become, the less I do. That's what I love about the spiritual path. The spiritual path becomes easier. The Course in Miracles says the spiritual path becomes easier and easier the further you go along when you're on your right path. And the Course in Miracles teaches that the hardest part is the beginning of anything. We think it starts off simple and gets complicated. The truth teaches it starts out difficult and then it gets easier. Why is the beginning the hardest part? Because we all know what the hardest part is of anything. The hardest part of anything is getting started. Lord, no one knows I know that about my apartment. Okay. Well, boy, when I do. I have to laugh because this is so deep. So I'm going to finish this paragraph and then I'm going to complete this and bring it down. Okay, I say it again. If you want to give your problems and errors over to the Holy Spirit, you must do that with the other person. Unless this becomes the one way. Did you say one way? What is the one way? Giving everybody else over to God in spirit. And then you do what? The Course in Miracles, I'm bringing the whole book into it. The Course in Miracles says the other thing you do is you ask Spirit, God, higher power. What do you ask? You say, I'm going to give the problem that looks like she's having to the Holy Spirit. I'm not going to try to fix her, right? But I am going to ask the 4 questions, right? What do you want me to do, Spirit? What do you want me? Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to say? And then who do you want me to say it to? So then I would ask myself, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? Well, then the Spirit says, well, I don't know how to break this to you, Earl, but I've already told you what to do. Don't try to correct her. Give it to me. And if there's something for you to do, you'll be told. And you can tell when Spirit tells you to do something because you have 2 characteristics. You want to do it and you'll be able to do it. That's what the Course in Miracles teaches. I love that. So Earl, even if I do ask you to do something, it's not going to ask you to sacrifice. I'm not going to ask you to do what you really don't want to do. So the solution that I'm going to give you as higher power is a solution I'm going to give you. It's going to be a solution that you want to do, and it's going to be one you are able to do. If it doesn't pass those 2 things, that's you making up that you should be doing something. I love this book. That's practical, you all. So the next time somebody's trying to get you to do something, even if you do give in, you might still give in to the guilt and do it even though you don't want to do it because we're used to being manipulated by guilt and anger. And it takes a while to get out of the program and letting people guilt you into stuff. And so it takes a minute to change that program because it's the way the Course says, it's the way that we operate in this plane, is that we try to get people to do stuff through anger and guilt. And so you're used to doing that. I'm used to doing that. You're doing it every time you're mad at somebody about what they do. That's you getting upset because they're not acting the way you. And you may feel justified. You say, well, you do need to try to fix somebody. And I said, no, what I'm saying is take a moment to ask guidance. Take a moment to ask Spirit what you're supposed to do to help that person. And if it's something that's coming from Spirit, it'll be something you can do right now. So what could I do right now that would be helpful to all of you right now? I could see you differently. I could see you differently. I can do that right now. See, a real answer though has nothing to do with the future. A real answer is something you can do right now. Every problem you think you have right now, the answer to that problem is in something that's available to you right now. It's never in something that you may have in the future to help you out. If you don't have no money, then there's something you can do right now that would allow that to be remedied right now. And most importantly, the thing that could remedy that is a change of mind. You need to ask for another perception of money. You need to ask for another perception of relationships. You need to ask for another perception of your coworkers. You need to ask for another perception of your children and your friends. The Course says, don't ever ask to correct the physical thing. Ask to correct your perception, because it's your perception that's wrong, and it's your perception that's giving you the experience that you're having right now. So ask for another perception of the person you don't like. You can do that today, right? So I'm going to finish this again. I'm going to keep on going till I get to the end of this paragraph. But somebody that's really, really into this, they're going to listen till I finish it. And if they don't, they can always watch it later. Okay? So, because sometimes I feel like I'm in a rush to go think crazy stuff again. Right? The class, let's get the class over so I can go back out and have totally wrong perception of everything that I'm trying to fix. Because I'm busy. I'm busy. And I got a lot to do, Earl. I got to see my ego in a lot of other people before 10 o'clock tonight. So, unless this becomes the one way, what? Giving it to God. Unless that becomes the one way you handle all egos, all errors, all people, you can't understand how all mistakes are undone. How is this different from telling you that what you teach, you learn? So if I want to learn how to correct my errors, then I need to demonstrate not correcting yours, because that's that way I learn how to not correct errors. The next sentence, what does the next sentence say? It says, you can't correct yourself. You cannot correct yourself. So is it possible that you can correct another? You haven't got your act together. So how is it that you think you're going to get everybody else's act together? You still got your issues. So how do you think you're going to get rid of mine? Just common sense stuff, right? He says that you can see that person truly, you can see that person correctly as a being that is spirit, that is sane, that does have some truth in them, because it's possible that for you to see yourself truly. So are you able to see me? Are you able to see yourself more truly than you've ever seen yourself? Well, the Court says, well, then you can also see that person in a different way than you've ever seen people. Yet you can see him truly because it's possible for you to see yourself truly. And here is a great sentence. What is it, gang? It's not up to you to change a person. It's up to you to accept that person. What do you mean? Accept that person as they are. So, I don't know. It sounds like another easy request. To me, I'm just going to accept you the way you are. See, if I am in touch with spirit, and I know I'm capable of taking care of myself through God, and I don't need to get anything from you, then I can accept you. See, it's hard to accept a person that you need to be a certain way for you to feel good. Because then you're going to need to try to change them so you can feel good. But if I'm centered in myself, and I feel whole in myself, and I got peace in myself, I can accept you as you are, because nothing about my happiness is dependent on you doing what I want you to do. And since nothing about my happiness is dependent on you and your behavior, I can let you have your behavior. I only want to change you if I think you need to be that way to make it better for me. But see, is this too honest? I know this is kind of hard, right? I know it can be kind of hard to hear something that's dishonest, because so much of our ego is about manipulating others for our own benefit. Why would I have to change you if I don't need you to be different for me to be peaceful? What reason would I have to change you? I'm only trying to change you for my needs. How I think, I don't want you to play a loud boombox, if they still have them, on the radio, show you how old I am, so that because I don't want to hear loud music. So I'm trying to change you so I can have a comfortable ride on the bus. It has nothing to do with you. It's always about me. Put that in your profile. So here we go. It says, that person, accept that person as they are. Their mistakes are not coming from the truth in them. And the truth in them, that's your truth. That person's mistakes cannot change the truth in them, that they are really an innocent child of God who's forgotten it. And so that can have no effect at all on the truth in you. I'm still a cool person, no matter how you are. And you are too, beneath your insanity. So to perceive errors in anybody, to perceive the ego in anybody, and then to react to it as if it were real, makes it real to you. All your anger and your upset about what they're doing and what they're saying is making it realer and realer to you. You won't escape the price. You won't escape paying the price for this, not because you're going to be punished, but because you're allowing your ego, the part of you that's telling you to try to correct everything outside of yourself rather than changing your own mind and giving them to God. You're letting the part of you that still believes it's about you fixing everybody else and correcting everybody else. He says that means you're following the wrong guide. And if you're following the wrong guide, the guide of the ego, the guide of fear, the guide of trying to fix and control everybody else, it says you will therefore lose your way. Was that good? Was that helpful?
Yes.
Will you get some time today to try this?
Yeah.
Will the lab present you with, I call it the lab. You're about to go out into the lab. I know we're saying it now, because now we're spiritual titans. We heard it. I'm a Titan. I remember what you said, Earl. And as soon as I go out of here and somebody is special to me, because all relationships that we single out are special relationships. Soon as I'm around the person who I know is most special to me, the one I get the most upset with, as well as the one I get the most excited about. That's the special one, right? That's who I'm going to be most tempted to try to fix and correct. So what do? I'm going to give you to God, because I'm going to give my stuff to God. I'm going to give yours to God. And I know I'm learning how to do that, so I won't always pull it off. And so therefore, I'm going to forgive myself when I still let my pattern come through, because that's my call for help. That's my call for love. So don't beat yourself up, because you're still going to do it sometimes. How do you know when you're following the wrong guidance? You're upset. All right. Okay. I'm going to do a 1 sentence, 2 sentence little recap thing at the end right now. I'm going to do the love offering, those who would like to share. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it, and I'm not going to correct you. I think it's kind and right and good. Okay. Those online, if you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation with full-time teacher Earl Purdy, then you can use Zelle, you can use Venmo, you can use the Cash App, you can use PayPal, and you can go to my website, earlpurdy.com. All you need is my email address. That's earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. I'm available for clarity sessions. If you'd like to have a one-on-one session with me called a clarity session, then go to my website and it will give you all the details, and you can self-book a personal session with me right online. I'm also available for soul purpose, astrological, numerological readings. You have a path. There's no accident that you're here, and everybody comes here with a roadmap. The roadmap doesn't control you. Your GPS doesn't control you, but it certainly makes your trip a lot easier by showing you the right routes to take. That's the analogy of astrology and stuff like that. It's just another way Spirit communicates to us to give us the information we need to have a more easy, harmonious life. We have lots of aid that the invisible is trying to give us, but we are educated and taught, and we're taught not to give credence to intuitive, psychic, and spiritual things, and to do everything from your logic and reason. So Americans especially are much more into logic and reason, their left brain, than in their right brain, which is the side that the intuition comes to. We even taught that that's evil, or that there's something wrong with it, right? So I say consider the source. If the person who's condemning your path, how loving are they? Well, actually, if they weren't loving, they wouldn't be condemning your path. They would know you have a right to your own path, and that you don't have to live your life the way they live theirs. See, the Course in Miracles teaches you how to tell the difference between when you're experiencing someone who's giving you real love and appreciation, and when you're dealing with someone who's not. He says, the ones you know the difference between right and wrong for you, then he says, then it's easier for you to choose the right path. He says, most people don't know when they're making a mistake. They don't know. But then here's the cool part about Spirit, though. You didn't have to put yourself through that hellacious situation or relationship, but you made some choices and you did. So Spirit says, well, I'm going to take you right where you are, and I'm going to heal and correct you from where you are, even in that error, even in that mistake, even in that relationship. But you didn't have to suffer. You chose it because of ignorance. You didn't know you were doing it. So I'm going to help you where you are. So Spirit, I love how the Course says that. You don't have to prepare yourself for God. You don't have to prepare yourself for love. He says, what's going to happen is that it meets you where you are. See, if you're going to help me, and I'm at the church, I need you to come to the church. I don't need you to say, I hate doing that when I do those Ubers and they say, I want you to go 3 blocks down and we go meet you at the corner. You know, say, I want you to pick me up where I am. Right? And that's what the Course says the truth does. It meets you where you are now. And someone who loves you is the same way. They're meeting you where you are now. Right? So just keep in mind that we're the ones that's making everything difficult that doesn't have to be difficult, because we're sticking to our old programming. So the Course in Miracles is saying to us, I'm going to give you some help. I'm going to give you a message. So every Sunday at 1:00 p.m. Mountain Time on Facebook Live, I do this presentation. You can come in person at 1555 Race Street, 1555 Race Street in Denver, Colorado, if you're in this area, or watch it online. I put all my classes on YouTube, and you can also watch the replay. And I have hundreds of classes on Facebook and on YouTube. Thursday nights, I do what I call Hardcore Course in Miracles. It's 7 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook. It's especially geared toward people who are actually studying A Course in Miracles, who want to take advantage of my 40 plus years of working with it, but they actually are reading and studying it. And so I'm right now, especially this year, I really want to focus on the practical applications. Now, did I give you all some practical applications, right? Some things that you could start to try to apply today. Cool thing is, you don't have to worry about will you do it one day. You will, because there is a limit to suffering. The Course says there is a limit to pain. That pain can never be unlimited. Love is the only thing that's unlimited. Pain is limited. So do you know that even if you were experiencing excruciating pain, you black out? You literally black out. At a certain point, the universe isn't set up for you to experience pain. So, so if it was really, really pain, and some people have blacked out in their relationships, right? It's so painful that they're not in it anymore. It's just that their bodies are there, but everything else about them is not in that relationship. So you may have blacked out because of something. You may have a job you're blacked out. You just come there and you go through the motions all day. Okay, here we go. Last 2 minutes. You ready? Oh my God. Oh, boy. I always teach my classes based on what I need to learn the most. So I always ask myself, Earl, what is it you need to be reminded of today? And the Spirit said to me, well, you need to be reminded of the correction of error. That you need to cut down on any correcting you're going to do. All right, here we go. Recap. If you want to give your problems over to the Holy Spirit, give the other person's problem over to the Holy Spirit. It's not kind and good and right for you to point out errors and correct other people's errors. When you do that, you're in your own ego. It's only your ego that can see anybody else's ego. It's only the part of you that has that quality that you're seeing in the other person, that you're seeing it in the other person. So the other person is making you aware of what you need to correct in your own mind. Every criticism, every judgment that you have about another person, you are seeing it through your own ego. You're seeing it through your own mind. You're seeing it through your own characteristic that's just like that. Do you know that if you are looking out and you see more and more loving people, and you're seeing people who are acting and expressing themselves in a more loving, sane way, do you know that also means you're looking at them through the loving, sane part of your mind? So if you're seeing yourself and you're seeing errors in other people, do not point out the errors in another person, if at all possible, before you ask guidance or before they ask you for the other perception. Because it's not like you're the only person on earth that can help them. So if you're not the one to do it, and Spirit wants that help to happen, that help is going to happen. How can you tell if you're the one that should be doing it? It will be something that you can do, and it will be something that you're able to do. Sometimes you're going to do some stuff that you don't still want to do because we're still programmed the way that we are. But that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it the correct way. When you react at all to anybody's ego, you're not listening to the Holy Spirit. You're not listening to love. So when a person is behaving insanely, try to remember that there is some sanity somewhere in that person. There is some sanity somewhere in that person. You may not be seeing that sanity because you're looking through your insanity. You're looking through the part of you that's just like them. That's why you're seeing it that way. But just like you are not your ego, you are not your insanity. You know that sometimes you act crazy, but that's not the real you. It's the same thing is true for everybody else. You cannot correct yourself. So how are you going to be able to correct someone else? So if you want to give your errors, your problems over to God, over to the Holy Spirit, over to love, then you have to give everybody else's over to love. And then you ask Spirit, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to say? Who do you want me to say it to? Do you want me to say something to this person right now? Tell me what you want me to do. And if I don't hear anything, then I'll just be quiet and remember the truth for that person, for them. I remember that you are an infinitely powerful child of God and that you deserve love. I will remember that for you. Mighty companions, may the cause may the cause be with you. I love you. Thank you so much for showing up today. All of you online, thank you. Thank you so much. Hugs are available if you dare. That's Thursday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, the Hardcore Course in Miracles class on Facebook Live. Love y'all.